All right. Amy's having some troubles, Tony. Would you mind pinch hitting until she can get that figured out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Oshkosh Advisory Parks Board agenda, or for the meeting tonight on June 14th. So we'll call the meeting to order. I think that the first thing on the list, Ray, you said that Kobe is not going to be here right now.
Yeah, he's going to join us. He figured about an hour later. His daughter has soccer that he coaches, so we can go off introducing him either at the end or next meeting. We'll see.
Okay, so then I guess Stacy will go ahead and do our roll call.
Stacy, you might be muted. All right, I'll start the roll call. Scott Groyle.
Here.
Tony Durst.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
I see Amy is back. Mayor Palmieri.
Here.
Deb Martin.
Here.
Lauren Bartell.
Here.
And Devin Hudak.
Here.
Becky Metz.
Here.
Right. Stacy's still trying to get unmuted, I think. Amy, are you back in without buffering? All right, Tony, I'm going to keep you going so we stay on schedule.
Nope, that sounds good. The next item of the agenda is the approval of the May 10th minutes. Is there any additions, changes, anything for that? Or is there a motion to approve?
This is Deb. I move to approve the minutes.
Second, Lori Palmieri.
And then I believe, Ray, on a virtual, we need to have everybody go through.
Yep, I'll go through the list again. I'll wait for Stacy to get through, but I'm going right on my screen. So Tony Durst.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Deb.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Becky.
Aye.
Devin.
Aye.
Lauren.
Aye.
Amy, let's give you a test. All right, still not hearing from Amy.
Okay.
Okay, Tony.
Well, we'll keep moving then. I don't believe I see any citizens on here for citizen statements or for public comments on the agenda items. So I believe we can ask if there's any old business that we need to address as a group.
There is not.
Okay, then seeing none, we'll move on to new business. And the first item is considering and recommending approval for the Gulf War Memorial Monument at South Park War Memorial area. So, Ray, it's off to you.
Actually, I'm going to turn these first two over to Bill Sturm. He's been working on these, so I'll let Bill take them over for us.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Ray and I had met several months ago with a representative from the Vietnam Veterans of America and the Chapter 437 rep, and they had proposed to us the donation of a marker to recognize the Gulf War and war on terrorism. And so we had enclosed a copy of the pictorial on that in your packet. And there aren't a lot of names on this one, but we thought it was kind of an important thing to recognize the contribution of those individuals who sacrificed their lives in the Gulf War and the war on terrorism. The Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 437 is raising the funds, and they, on our recommendation, met with G. Reinke Company to have a marker designed that wouldn't be overly large, and the suggestion was to incorporate it into the flower garden at the South Park Veterans Memorial. So it would be as part of that existing memorial, it would be the addition of another marker in front of it. The marker is 48 inches wide and 30 inches high, and would be constructed of a southern gray marble, which matches the existing monument. So currently we have sort of a curbed garden bed around that monument, and so our thought was to incorporate that new marker into that flower bed so that it kind of will coexist then as part of that whole installation. Anyone have any questions regarding that?
Bill, just a wording question on there. I'm not familiar with seeing that particular type of memorial. I mean, I've seen those kinds, but the way that it says Gulf War on terrorism, is that common on other markers to have it phrased that way?
That was the text that was provided to us by the veterans group. So I guess I don't know for sure. I've, been familiar with the reference to Gulf War, but I think the war on terrorism is I believe a separate conflict, or recognition of a different conflict.
Okay.
So that's kind of all I know about it. I could do a little more research and just to see, because I was curious as well.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering if it was talking about two different items or one item with more description, and that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe it's
I
two
kind of had the
separate
same question.
conflicts.
This is Deb. I have the same question too, because there's no dates. And, like the war on terrorism maybe could still say until we get out of Afghanistan and Iraq, we're still in it. So I would appreciate some more clarity about the wording on the marker, please.
Okay, I can get in contact with the group and talk to them about it. This was the Vietnam veterans are really aware of all those, and that this was on their recommendation. They actually went to and presented this text to Reinke for the design. So I'm assuming that they know best about how to present that. So. But I can do some more investigation if you like.
Yeah, thank you, because technically we're still in the Gulf. And so without any dates of reference, I think it's kind of confusing, but anyway, thank you.
I think what Bill can do is take a look at the existing monuments down there too and try to be a little consistent with what the wording is on there. I didn't compare them either. I was more or less going with what the vets were providing. Any other questions? Otherwise, it might be best if we just if we table this till the next meeting, if there's that question that wants to get addressed by a couple members. Would somebody like to make a motion to table it till your next meeting?
Well, real quick, Bill, I just was curious if we wanted to go down. I'm not familiar enough with this area of South Park. Can you tell me where that is? I might even just stop by and check it out for my own curiosity's sake.
Yeah, it's on the corner of 11th and Ohio, so it would be the northeast corner of South Park.
Okay.
So there's it's basically right at the intersection. There's a monument there. There's flagpoles. That little corner has always been where they have their Memorial Day programs and things like that. So it's been a long-standing monument to the veterans.
Okay. Well, I've run by there a million times. I didn't never stop to see what it was. And now I will check it out. So, is there a motion to table this for a future meeting?
I'll motion.
Was that you, Becky?
I'll second. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Becky.
Okay, thank you. So you guys can hear me now then?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry to be that person again. All right, so I'll do the roll call on the motion. Bartelt? Is she shaking her head? I can't see her.
She's not videoed. I don't know if she's muted.
Okay. Davis?
Aye.
Durst,
Aye.
Groyle,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Net,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
and then is Lauren on yet? I'll check with Lauren tomorrow. But as of now, motion passed 8-0.
And I'll clarify real quick. We'll table it till the next meeting because as we discussed, July may or may not happen depending on if there's items. So the next meeting may be August, but we'll bring it back at the next meeting. And then just real quickly on that too, the city does have a donation policy where a number of donations can be accepted by the city manager department. But because this one is a memorial, specifically in the donation policy, it talks about memorials being approved by a board and commission and the council. So that's the direction that this will go. The second one, Amy, do you want to try again and see if we can hear you? Amy?
Yeah, I think Tony should just keep it for a while.
Okay. Tony, for this next one, consider and recommend placement of a sign at the George Washington Triangle for a donated Liberty Elm tree. This one was a little bit in a gray area for donations. Typically, we'll have people go through our memorial tree donation program, and then we have a standard plaque that gets placed with these. This one was a little different, and because of that, and placing a sign that's outside the norm of our memorial tree and tree plaque, we felt again it was probably best to bring it here and then forward it to the council because it's a sign placement versus our standard program. So, Bill, if you want to take that one too.
Sure. The Wisconsin Society of the Sons of the American Revolution had contacted us earlier in the spring regarding the donation of a Liberty Elm tree to be placed at the George Washington Monument. And so it hadn't been coordinated extremely well on their end. We thought we were just accepting a tree, but they also provided us with a plaque, but no real means of mounting it. Our concern, as Ray mentioned, was that the plaque was unlike what had previously been approved for our memorial tree program. And so we were trying to see if we could maybe get them to agree to something on that order. However, they had more text that they cared to provide in reference to the history of the Liberty Elm tree. And you can kind of read some of the information on the pictorial that I provided. So what we did was we tried to kind of design our own method of presenting that historical sign. And so we kind of worked with the sign department. They are able to provide a black pole post, which is similar to what we have for our historic street signs. And then we were able to mount that sign that they made available to us on a sign like that, which we're suggesting would be installed directly next to the tree in a mulched island, so that we don't have to do a lot of trimming around it. So we wanted to present this design option to the group. The Wisconsin Society of the Sons of the American Revolution have approved the idea. I think they're kind of happy that we came up with something. So we just kind of wanted to run it by this group to make sure that everyone is in agreement to recommend a sign of this nature to be placed in that location.
And Bill, yeah, Bill, it's my understanding that in that location there, and I went and looked at it, there's also a plaque, I believe it's at the ground level, like a bronze one from the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yeah, there are some plaques that are there at the base of the George Washington Monument itself.
I'm just out of curiosity in the discussions with that group. I mean, was there any discussion about trying to maybe not match, but at least come more similar to that? Or I kind of got the impression they already produced this plaque or sign before they got it through the process.
That is correct. They provided us the sign basically when we accepted the tree. So they kind of called me up on the fly and said, we're bringing the tree over. And then as they were delivering the tree, they produced the sign, and I suggested that it probably wasn't going to conform to our normal requirements, but that we would do, look into it. So they later sent us the plaque, and then, I had been hopeful that they would have provided some sort of a mounting method or an idea of how they prefer to have these mounted, but evidently this was the first community that had really, accepted one of these trees. And so I inquired about other communities, and evidently the city of Kaukauna had accepted one. Their solution was to adhere the plaque onto a surface mounted slab of concrete, which I didn't really like because it's a plastic sign. And then you'd have, potential for damage and vandalism on that. So
This is did you say this is a plastic sign?
yeah, it's like a plastic sign. We're intending on backing it up with something like a steel plate so that it's more durable. But it's essentially kind of a plastic sign similar to what you'd see like in an office building or something. So
So where,
this-
I'm trying to
So-
imagine where in the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Deb.
I mean, that memorial area with the George Washington, memorial there, I'm sorry, I'd like to see, but now that you say it's plastic, it looks kind of cheap, and I don't know that that's a good idea. Anyway, you said it's not been done anywhere else except maybe one other city. Why this sign, and why now? I just like a little more background. Sorry.
I'd also like to, my question is more like content wise. It seems like this, what does this have to do with Oshkosh or any of our parks or people or anything? I think that the idea of the Liberty Tree is cool. I think it's a neat story. I feel like most of the things that we have in our community and our parks all are community, like, do we have somebody that planted the Liberty Tree there and that's why we're so, like, I don't understand why they want this plaque. I'm just, it's kind of a weird request in my opinion.
And if I could just offer too, I know that the neighborhood association over there has spent a lot of time and effort and planning for that triangle area with the Parks Department and the city. I'm just wondering if anybody had a chance to talk to any of those folks that are this kind of helping steward that as part of the, I think it's the Millers Bay Neighborhood Association plan. I mean, I know they don't have jurisdiction over the entire park, but I'm just kind of curious if anybody talked to them.
I saw Becky, I think you were talking, it might have been on mute. Do you have something?
Yeah, sorry, Tony. The reason for the sign is the elm that they planted is a clone of the Liberty tree. So that's the explanation.
Ray, I think you're on mute also.
I've been hounding everybody
Winning
else
all
these
over the
days.
place.
Bill, I did not talk to anybody from Millers Bay Neighborhood Association, and I don't know if you did, or, I mean, yes, we can check with them, but again, as Lori said, they have input into it, but ultimately it comes to the Parks Board to decide whether or not. So they do, and they've made improvements around the statue with some lighting and a few other things, and the shrub bed and so forth, but I don't think any of us had any discussions with them.
If I may, I think I'd like to also make a motion to table this item as well.
Can I ask Bill real quick, if we said no to the sign, are they taking their tree with them? Like, what's the recourse for what happens with this?
Well, the tree has already been planted, so, and as I mentioned earlier, that's where I thought it was ending, with the acceptance of the tree. So, yeah, I don't think there's really going to be a big problem. I mean, obviously they'd probably like to see the sign there, but it is, they knew at the outset that it may not be approved.
I think it might be good to go ahead and table this one too, and we need to have somebody from their organization at the meeting and answer some of these questions, because again, I think it put Bill and some of our staff in an awkward position where we tried to accommodate them, and I think there's still some questions that need to be addressed. So I think,
Deb,
Mayor, did
I'll
you make a
second the
motion?
motion. Mayor made a motion. This is Deb. I'll second the
Okay.
table.
All right. I'll do roll call. Bartelt.
Aye.
All right. Davis.
She's here, but issues on the phone
All
yet.
right. All right. Durst.
Aye.
Groyle.
Aye.
Hudak.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Met.
Aye.
Millet.
Aye.
And Palmieri.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Motion passed. And Amy did let me know that she had an aye. So motion passed 9-0.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll move on to number 3. It looks like it's consider and recommend trail route name, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee recommendation. So, Ray, will that be
Yep.
you or somebody else?
I will kick it off, and then I'll turn it over to Alexa from our planning division. This is really a recommendation coming from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. They have been looking at ways to market some of the trails throughout the city in connection with the Wheel Wash and so forth. And Alexa can talk a little bit about that. They did some surveying and getting some naming ideas for a loop. Included in your packet was that loop shown. But Alexa, if you want to tell us a little bit about the project and go from there.
Sure, thanks, Ray. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa Najunas. I work for the Planning Division, and I'm the liaison for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So this was an idea that they've been floating around for over a year now, and they wanted to find a way, like Ray said, to market and promote the use of our trails and maybe get more people here and get some name recognition to an actual route. So we're not building anything. This is not any kind of infrastructure. We're simply just using what we already have and trying to put a catchy name to it. And so you may have it in your packet. It's a map. So it shows both sides of the river, ending or beginning around Main Street Bridge, going over the water, all the way up over the Highway 41 bridge, back around, and also utilizing the new trail by the Oshkosh Corp headquarters and Lakeshore Park. And so it's a complete loop. Some of the sections are off trail, some of them are on road, some of them are on the Riverwalk, the Wheel Wash, and bridges. So it's a varied route as far as facilities that are offered. And we plan to change the route as more facilities get built, specifically around Oshkosh Ave and Sawyer. That's a little bit of a hairy section for pedestrians to cross. So once we figure that out long term, we'll update the route. So we utilize Polco, our survey tool that the city uses, and we got responses back on a variety of names. And then at the April meeting, I'm pretty sure it was, for Bike and Ped, they made a recommendation on which name to choose, knowing that it would go to your group to see what you thought and to make whatever recommendation you see fit. And the name that they finalized was Five Bridges Trail. And the 5 bridges represents the 5 bridges that cross the Fox River that the trail goes on. So that's about it. If you guys want to talk about it or ask me any questions about the process, feel free.
Alexa, could you maybe share like a couple of the other names that they came up with? I know this was their final, but like what were the finalists? Just curious.
Sure. I have the results of the Polko survey right here. I can just read them to you, or I could share my screen. What do you think I should do, Ray?
Maybe just list the finalists, because I think you had quite a few replies to it. So maybe what did your committee suggest or recommend from?
Okay, so the top three were Oshkosh Loggers Loop, Five Bridges Trail, and then Fox River Loop. Those were the top three. And we decided, another reason they decided that they liked the Five Bridges Trail was because it didn't make any commentary onto the history of Oshkosh necessarily, or when history begins in Oshkosh. Because the reference to loggers is a reference to like when we started building the city up, and then I'm talking more like native peoples, like they were there before we started doing logging. So we thought it would be smarter to stay away from the historic timeline and highlighting one part in the history of the development of the area, since obviously there was stuff going on way before people were logging. The Fox River Loop one was a popular one, but then someone pointed out that there's another Fox River Loop, and the Fox River goes all the way up the whole corridor, and it just isn't unique enough to Oshkosh, so people might not know when you say Fox River Loop. So they chose the Five Bridges Trail. And I might add, we have plans that have just very brief ideas that there will be subsections in between each bridge that will have some kind of theme, like downtown between like Oregon and Main Street will have some theme name, like little subsections. And then that way people can identify the area a little bit easier if they're trying to meet someone there. They could say, let's meet at the beginning of this part, etc.
And so why didn't they like the historical part of the naming? I mean, why
Well,
would you want to be proud of?
Well, because the Loggers Loop, Oshkosh Loggers Loop, speaks to only one group of people, and it's kind of as if that's when the city started, when actually there's a longer history than people just logging in Oshkosh. So why call out one use of the river when the river has been used way before we were logging here? So that's why.
Okay.
I'll just say, I think it's really catchy, the Five Bridges Trail. My husband and I, when the last section was opened, well, actually before Lakeshore, the south side, and he did a little video, and we were joking around and calling it Do the Blue Loop. But Five Bridges Trail, if I'm coming from out of town, looking for a scenic bike ride, and I'm thinking about going across bridges on my bike, I kind of, it gives like a visual of what you can expect. So I really like it, and I'll support it.
See, I'm totally the opposite. I think it's awful. Why would I want to go biking around bridges? And it doesn't go pow. I want to go and bike here, but that's just me.
Did anyone take the survey, or did you see it posted?
I did not see it posted, but I don't go through my emails very often.
I did take the Polko survey, and that was actually my choice. I really like that name. I think it highlights some of the major landmarks of the trail, and also could be kind of all right, today we're going to go to this bridge, or okay, we've accomplished that, let's go to the next bridge. And I agree with the mayor. I think that if you're going to try and find a trailhead, you go to one of the bridges and you'll find it. So I support that name.
My question is, I know that it happens to also combine the heritage trail around Butamore. Is that going to be one of those subsections, Alyssa, that you're talking about? Is that kind of how you would view that, or just out of curiosity, if are we renaming that area or what with that?
So no, the tribal heritage crossing will stay exactly as it is now. We're not going to really get involved in that. Like I said, we haven't really hashed out the exact specifics of those subsections. But no, the goal would not be to interfere at all with any existing trail names, because I know they did a lot of research and a lot of work went into that tribal crossing. So short answer is no. Long answer is we don't really have like that totally planned out yet, how it'll go down.
Well, I like it too. I think it's a neat name and a good idea. So if there's any other points of discussion, Ray, is this a recommendation, I think, to take to council, or what is our next step for this?
Yeah, that's what we prefer to do.
Okay. So do we have
Can we call the question, or I move that we accept the recommendation for Five Bridges Trail for this trail in our city.
This is the last.
Do we have a second?
Lester, second.
Second.
Thank you. I'll do roll call then. Barkhout,
Aye.
Davis. She said aye. Durst,
Aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Met,
I still don't like it, but
Millet,
I like it. Aye.
Paul Mary.
Aye.
All right, motion passed 9-0. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay, thank you.
Alexa.
Thanks, Alexa. We're moving on to number 4 now, which is discuss and recommend capital improvement program CIP 2022 to 2026. I was going to just suggest maybe, I think there'll probably be significant discussion with this. And I know that we're all on different like feeds and how quickly we can respond to things. And maybe for this one, you could raise your hand. I can see y'all that have your video on, and I'll kind of go like, you know, Lori, then Deb, then whoever, so we can try to keep everybody able to participate when they want to.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, I will share my screen. I'll pull up the Excel spreadsheet that you received, and so the public can see it as well. But for anybody who is new to the board, this is an annual process that we go through every year with the Parks Board. The 5-year capital improvement program is really our major program, our major project planning for the department. The mayor had asked me earlier today to provide some information on the dollar amount basically for the last 10 years of what we received for funding for our projects. And it really varied. I was able to get some information. I went back about 5 years, and I would say out of the projects that we as the Parks Board prioritize, we have been successful in getting, and this is just projects, it does not include our maintenance equipment and so forth. I would say anywhere between $500 to $1 million. And it varies because some years we'll have larger projects, some years it is more of the smaller projects. But I would say over the last couple of years, $500 to $1 million. The 1 year that we had received about 1.1 million, quite a bit of that funding was coming from grant funding. So it's not all city funding that comes into our projects. As I said in the memo, what we try to do is focus on the next 2 years, so 2022 and 2023. The reason for that is those are the areas of focus for the city manager, the finance director, and the council. They try to balance the budget out over those the next 2 years, even though we're planning out for 5. The city does still limit its borrowing. So a great majority of the borrowing that the city does every year goes to the streets for street reconstruction and street projects. And then I would say there's about $3 to $4 million that the remaining departments really try to plead our case for our projects. So by us getting that, $500 to $1 million out of the remaining $3 or $4 million, I think we've done good. But it does speak to, as you can see in the list, projects that we just don't get to because we don't have the funding. So what we typically do, we'll meet, Chad, Bill, and I, and some other staff will meet every year. in May and take a look at the past projects that we had provided and that the board had discussed and prioritized. And we'll again take a look at some of those items. We'll do a prioritizing, and that's what we provided to you. What we do is bring this to you. And then after tonight, if there's any changes or things to move around in the plan, we then supply this list to the city manager, the council, and the finance director that the Parks Board took a look at it. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we can start going through it. Can everybody see this, hopefully?
No, not
yet,
yet.
Ray.
No? All right, we'll try.
Oh, I see it.
Yes? Okay, good. All right, so this is what was provided in your packets. I'll go through. I think if it's okay, Tony, we'll go year by year and we'll take questions based on that year and address any questions. Really, the big project for us this year, over the next 2 years, is our new Parks Department building renovation. The council did allocate $1.5 million in this year's CIP for us to begin the design work and the preparation work for the building renovation, with the majority of that funding coming next year at $3 million, which will be when we do the construction. The next big item that you'll see in just about every year is the Lakeshore Park development. And you'll notice that we put in the $1,338,800. But if you take a look at the bottom, we've applied for a DNR grant. If we're successful, that would pay for about 50% of that. So what we have been doing, and as you might see each year, we are recommending that the city budget roughly $500,000 each year, which provides us that matching funds for any grants that we can hopefully secure or apply for. So even though it's showing at 1.3 million, the city's portion would be about 50% of that. The Menomonee Park Beach House, as this group is aware from our tour, we're working on some planning ideas and some possible funding options to renovate the building. And so what this basically is doing, I'm putting a placeholder in at this point for about $150,000. I'll give you an update where we're at on that project. We did meet last week with a local firm that's going to give us a proposal to give us some ideas and some elevations or some concept ideas on what the building could potentially look like. Once we start working on that and get a little bit further into some of the design, we'll have a better idea what the potential cost of that might be. And that's where we had talked about some potential partnerships and fundraising ideas. So right now it's basically a placeholder, knowing what we do need to do something there. And we do expect the city may have to possibly contribute some funding at this point. That may change, but I think we've got some time between now and when the council adopts the budget in November. So that's kind of where we're at on that one. Menominee Park Zoo improvements. These are projects that really look at improving our security and perimeter fencing, as well as some of the paths within the zoo. We have requested funding for the zoo in other CIPs, and it didn't make the final cut with the city manager and the council. So I'm impressing upon the city manager and hoping the Parks Board can help us with this, that we do need to do some fencing for security and other purposes, but also the pathways in there really need some updating and some work. When I'm talking fencing, if you go on the north side towards the central restrooms and towards the historic bridge, that old wooden bridge or the wooden fencing, we have had to secure up a number of times. And that's almost like our secondary fencing so that there's not a security issue with animals or people getting in. So definitely time for us to put some money into that. And I shared with the city manager and the finance director that the majority of the exhibits and major improvements that have gone on at the zoo have not been tax subsidized. It's been a lot of donations and private support from the foundation and other areas. So I think this is a way that the city needs to look at its basic needs of the infrastructure at the zoo. The next project would be West Haven Circle Park lighting. And this is something that we had requested to be in the 2021 budget. It was not. The reason we had requested it to be in this year's budget is due to the fact that we are doing the playground structure over there as well as the ball field renovation this year. And our hope was while we're in there making, disruptions to the site, we could have got this included. You'll see as we go through all 5 years, we have been working on replacing lighting in our parks for probably the last 7 years or so. Some of the reasons for that is we've got some very old light standards. Some of those still have fiberglass poles, which if you remember as kids, or maybe your kids did it, when you run your hands on those fiberglass poles, it's not something you're going to forget. You're getting fiberglass pieces into your hands. So for safety reasons, but also we've been going to a standard park light, which is LED, which ultimately is going to help us cut down on some of the energy use. So West Haven Circle, if we get that funded, we'd have the majority of those improvements done at that park at that time. And then each year, what we are going to start doing is requesting some funding for park trail improvements. This is something I think that we haven't paid enough attention to. In this year's budget, we do have funding to address the drainage issue towards the north end of Menomonee Park. That project's ongoing right now with our engineering division. But as we looked at that, that's a short section of our trail system, and that's going to cost us about $75,000. So if we were to at least get some $25,000 or some kind of funding annually to start addressing the park trails throughout our park system, what we'd do is prioritize those and address the higher priority issues in the parks. So when you look at this, bottom line, we're looking for about 4.6 million, but obviously 3 million of that is for the new building, and it's something that I don't think the council and the city manager are going to look at and say we have to cut projects anywhere because we're putting a new building in. It's just one of those big ticket items that we understand with our aging facilities that needs to be done. So that's kind of what we're looking at for next year, and I would take any questions that people might have.
Scott, go ahead.
Just a thought. I mean, these are arranged by order of unit cost. Excuse me.
Actually, Scott, I didn't look at that, but this is basically how Chad and I discussed prioritizing as well. So you're right. It ended up being that way, but I looked at them as how we need to prioritize them based on what we felt needed to be done.
Okay, can't argue with that at all. I trust your judgments. My only input is to give you some more time on the park beach house renovation, perhaps lower that in priority or move it to 2023. It gives you an opportunity to maybe work on some public-private partnerships.
And I think I appreciate that, and it may end up being that, but I think right now, I think in the next 2 months, once we get some information from the consultant we're hoping to work with, I think between now and that October, November time when the council does have to approve the budget, we'd have a pretty good feeling, and I can let you know what the progress is on that project as we meet every month. So you're right, it may end up getting bumped based on scheduling and how much work will have to go into it. But I think for now, I'd be comfortable leaving it in there at least for a placeholder as the city manager and finance director look at this.
I see Mayor Palmieri, go ahead.
Yes, and I guess I'm thinking somewhat along the lines of Chief Royal that perhaps given the fact that council and the community are also working on the Clearwell project adjacent or proximal to the beach house, I would almost be inclined to increase the amount for that beach house renovation in anticipation of what we're looking at doing across the street. And given that there's going to be some time yet before decisions are made there, this may present an opportunity if we move this off a bit to perhaps do something beyond the bare renovations.
Deb.
I would urge us not to put off. I understand about, doing it bigger. I was there last Sunday at the park in general, not at the beach, but it is packed. And, we do have the outhouse, so for the restroom there, but there is tons of people that use that, even though it is a small. And so I hate to see us delay too many years of, having to get by with one or two temporary restroom areas.
My only comment, Ray, or thought is, you mentioned the small section of the Menominee Park Trail and what it might cost. I worry that the 25,000 would end up being taken by Menominee Park all the way through, and I know that other parks might need trails too. So I don't know, or like more path work on there. So I know that money's obviously you can't ask for everything, but I worry that would take a long time to get you to where you wanted to be with all of the park trails, but I trust you all, like Scott said. So,
Yeah, I agree. And I wasn't focusing strictly on Menominee. I was just going to use that as an example, just to give you an idea on what a section of trail and some improvements might cost. But when you take a look at a trail like Stevens Park or something like that, or to give you another comparison on the north end of Menominee, the Oaks Trail, or is it Oaks Trail up on top there, Bill? Help me out with the horseshoe up on top.
Yeah, that's Oaks Trail up there, right?
Okay. So to give you an idea, when we worked with the streets division to do that repaving project, I think that was probably about $35,000 to do that entire section. And again, it's done in-house, and we work with the streets to buy the materials. So, that's wider than a trail. So it's a decent section. So a park like Stevens Park or some of those smaller neighborhood parks, it could do some fairly nice work in those. But you're right, when we get to a Menominee Park, we're talking a lot more dollars that we'd have to take a look at then.
okay. Thank you. Mayor.
Yes, and I guess just because I did go in and review the Menominee Park master plan, and I was a little confused in looking at the document. There was quite a bit of citizen input, and that's getting rather dated, that plan from 2012. And it looks like we've done some of those items, but the remaining undone items related to complaints about the beach and that. And I guess in the plan, it talked about whether or not that should become a year-round or 4 seasons, but then in parentheses, it had like the opposite statement for several of those recommendations. So I guess maybe I'm wondering, is there a plan to revisit the plan and perhaps update it, or what's the status there on that?
When we did the Menominee Park and some of the larger community park master plans, we looked at those as 10 to 20-year plans. It's not saying we couldn't look at updating those. We could possibly look at that as we start to talk about updating our entire corp. And we also have 2 neighborhood parks that were dedicated as part of new subdivisions that we are also going to be looking at doing park plans for next year, most likely. So we could probably take a look at that, whether it's next year or the following year to make it updated at. You're right, it was 2012. We have done some things there, a lot of things still remaining. And yeah, I'm not saying we can't look at it. Maybe we take a look at some of the plans that we want to include for updating along with the new ones that we need to do as well.
And I guess that's the other piece of this in terms of priorities, where we are looking at adding new parks and that, and still trying to take care of these other items. And I don't know if anybody here on this board has looked at the Parks, Jobs, and Equity Act that's working its way through the House. I believe it's in the Natural Resources Committee. But anyway, I can't tell you what HR number it is, but there is a House bill out there that could potentially down the line be helpful here, recognizing some of the deficiencies in areas that need help. And I guess I just wanted to understand priority wise if those new parks for Ripple and that are coming up for discussion, you know, how we're working that, because Lakeshore wasn't even on our radar a few years ago, and we've moved that up in priority as we should through the opportunity that we had. But just curious about how this body, you know, feels about some of those priorities.
Yeah, I think, Lori, the focus of, and I think it's detailed quite a bit in our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, is to maintain what we have. And you bring up a good point. You're seeing projects here that we are pushing back 5-6 years, some of them even longer, because of the tight funding. And so that's why we try to take advantage of private partnerships, grant funding, whatever that might be, because it is difficult to say, let's keep adding parks, which we all agree we need to keep adding parks. But then where does the funding come from to get them improved, get them developed, and then keep up the annual maintenance when we're fighting to keep up with the things we have? So that's, you know, part of the struggle. We talked a little bit about that in the joint meeting on Thursday. So I don't know if there's a quick answer to it other than we need to keep prioritizing. And just to give you an idea, we look at, when we look at things, we're looking at things for health and safety. So when we talk about a new playground at a site, or again, replacing these old light poles, knowing the beach building is a safety health concern, those are the top priorities for us. And I think we'll continue to do that. So it's a tough act. And I shared that again with the city manager and finance director, saying we're fighting a never ending battle right now to try to get these projects funded and get them in a plan. So it is very difficult.
And if I may, Chair, Vice Chair, one more follow-up.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I don't want us to be too short-sighted with the beach house. Over the last couple of years, there have been significant, and maybe this even goes back, Mr. Groyle, when you were chief, you know, challenges with groups of unsupervised youths and mischief, well, more than mischief at times. You know, I'm a little bit, I guess, biased because my granddaughter was actually assaulted by several youth in the park last summer. And, you know, we ended up in the ER with her. But the reason I bring that up is some of our citizens have been talking about, you know, doing a better job with our beach and our beach house and maybe programming to, I guess, maybe provide some more alternatives and pride in getting some of those youth involved in that. And I don't say that very lightly, because the last thing I really want to do is run the bill up here, but I just hope that we aren't being short-sighted by settling for a renovation.
And I think after last month's meeting, I guess the direction that I was given to at least have those discussions and come back with some type of a plan, we can continue down that road at this point and continue to have this discussion. So I'm not disagreeing with any comments. And Scott, I'm not disagreeing with your thought on, you know, do we shift the bathhouse or the beach house renovation? And Mayor, I'd love to say, yeah, let's put $4 million in there and do a new beach house year round and expand the beach. But it comes down to the reality of we're not going to get the funding because it's just not there. So I think we need to keep moving down a path of at least looking at a renovation at this point. And if something changes between now and the next couple of months as we look at that, then we can shift gears and have further discussions. Or if there's, as we talk later on, ARPA fund potentials, is that a project where this board would like to recommend to the council to consider for ARPA funding if it meets their criteria? So, and I believe actually that is a project, as department heads, we were asked to give some suggestions, and that was one of mine as well. So that's where this overlap will be between this discussion and that ARPA funding. So we can come back to this. I don't want to get too stuck on one year because there's a number of them here. So this is 2023, and as you can see, the the list keeps growing. And some of the reason for that is projects that were not funded that we had requested for this year, they get bumped back. And then when we bump them back 2 years, the projects that we had scheduled for 2 years get bumped back 2 more years. So you can look at here again, the Parks Department building renovation. This will be the final year for that project. Lakeshore Park, again, I think has to remain as one of our priorities. This is part of the Menomonee Park Master Plan, the redo and reconstruction of the Menomonee Park, the parking lot and the Reeds Fields design. So this would be the design phase. Menomonee Park roads, we get constant complaints about the roads going through there. We've worked with the streets division to do some repairs in the last couple of years, but I shared with the city manager, we need to look at this as a city street, a city road that's heavily utilized daily, that we need to start looking at making improvements in. And this is only about half of what we would need. I think I put in 2 years of $500,000. And this again was one of those projects where I said maybe potential ARPA funding. You're going to look at, we're getting into the tennis court resurfacing time again. I had a brief discussion with the mayor on some of these, but Tech Miller tennis courts, those were redone before I got here. I've been here 11 years now, so we have not recolored or recoated or done much of anything to those. We had our tennis court consultant come in and take a look at our courts again, and these are his recommendations, that Tech Miller tennis court resurfacing, West Haven tennis court resurfacing. And then we start looking at some of our older playgrounds, the 44th parallel play equipment. A lot of these play equipments that you're seeing now, back, I would say between 2001 and 2006, the city went through this 5-year period where we replaced playgrounds, and we're in that 5-year period again. We're about 20 years from when we put them in. And I had a nice meeting with Deb Martin last week or 2 weeks ago, and we talked about the CIP and how we look at this every year and prioritize. And, you know, Roe Park maybe was 2 years out, but now we're having issues with the equipment being damaged or not being able to get replaced. So we look at that every year and we shift things around, but we try to keep some of those safety things again in our mind. So 44th parallel play equipment, Roe Park play equipment. And then these are the 2 park sites. Park site A is on Ripplin, Oregon, and then park site B is out in 9th and Clairville. These are, again, new parks. The one out on 9th and Clairville, I think, is about 1.5 acres. And park site A, I would need to get back to you on that one. I don't have that one in my mind as far as what the size of those were. But again, we've got development going on in parkland that was dedicated by these developers, and now the residents are asking, you know, what's the time frame? We do have Roos Park out by Carl Traeger Field, or Carl Traeger School, I'm sorry, where we have a plan that we had done, and there's trail expansion to the west out to some of the new development out in that area, so that those residents can get into the park and get into out to the school, into the subdivision that way. Park trail improvement, again, that $25,000. And then Riverside Cemetery, what Bill does every other year is request $25,000 to repave some of the roads at Riverside Cemetery. So we have that in this year's CIP. So again, in 2023, we'd be requesting that. And Bill works with our street division. Again, they do the work and we supply the materials for that. So again, you can see the list continues to grow. We know that, you know, we may get potentially 4 projects, maybe 5 projects potentially funded, depending how much they cost. But we need to keep these all on our radar. I am open for any questions on this list as well.
Mayor, and then Becky, and then Deb. Sorry.
No, Deb and Becky, go ahead. I'll wait.
All right, Deb or Becky, you were next.
This is kind of not related. The tennis courts resurfacing at both places, are they gonna try to do pickleball at either of those?
At this cost, we were not. What we did was at the South Park, we wanted to try to get some more closely towards the west side of town. In order for us to include pickleball courts, we would need to add square footage to the footprint. So we would be increasing the cost because we just can't slide those into the court. It adds a little bit more square footage, just like we had to down at South Park at this point. So if that's the direction that you guys would like us to look, that $100,000 will probably go up to probably about $150,000 potentially at each, but we could look into that. It's just a matter of, again, they need to be addressed, resurfacing, recolor coding.
Deb, go ahead.
Ray, what can we do as members on this advisory board to help encourage the council to accept more of our, if you give us the timing of when this will be presented, is there, anything we can do to help encourage that more of them get accepted? Because these lists, I don't see how you take anything out but then as things happen, they don't get accepted. So then they get added and everything gets pushed out. Wow. It's a lot. And I understand that the city has many other things too, but as being on the Parks Board, I want to encourage the parks things.
Yep.
So whatever we can do to support you.
No, I appreciate that. And that's why we bring it to this board every year. I don't know of another board or commission that prioritizes like this group does, and that helps. But what we will do is we can make sure that when the council is going to be meeting on the CIP. You can always feel free to email and make calls, but we can definitely let you know when the capital improvement program meetings will take place. So that would be a good time to make some contacts.
Mayor, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I did not know until you pointed this out, Ray, that road reconstruction in Menomonee Park was attributed to the park's budget and not our regular street budget. Can this board, or would this board be interested in making a recommendation that be moved over into our general streets? Or is it a matter of it's not going to get done or it's going to get pushed out further that you're concerned about? One item. Second item, I'd be interested in knowing the number of users of the tennis courts, given that every 5 to 7 years we're resurfacing to the tune of $100,000. And especially since I know the one that was up off Jackson Street deteriorated to the point that it was unusable and it was removed. And now that's going to be the future site of the Merrill School in the central city. So I have questions about the benefits and the number of folks using those tennis courts to that expense. I'd like to propose that we increase the Roe Park budget to expand that beyond just play equipment. But I'm not sure if that conversation takes place here and now or at a different point in time. And then my last question is Parks A and B, Ripple, Oregon, and 9th Clairville, because that land was dedicated by the developer, does that necessarily require that is immediately prioritized to be done? Is there a time frame that is required for that? I know it's a lot of questions.
I think I have a list and I'll try to go through those. I think the first one being the park roads. I would fully support if this board wanted to make a recommendation that the council and the city administrator consider these as part of the citywide street projects. In the past, these have been treated as private roads, private park roads. And I'd be honest that's probably one of the reasons why they haven't gotten funded or I haven't pushed them up in our priority, because we have a lot of other things that we can do with $500,000. So I would be in support of that. I don't know, what the city manager and the other council members would think, but they are city roads or city streets that are pretty heavily used every day. So that's one option. Tennis, you had said the 5 to 7 years. That's the number I shared with you. Our consultant shared with us was every 5 to 7 years, based on the court's use. That's when the recoloring basically of the tennis courts would take place. Again, Tech Miller, we have not done anything with them. in at least 12 years. And West Haven, same thing. Since I have been here 11, that we haven't touched those in 12 to 13 years. So it's a matter of it's been deferred too long, and we need to do something. To get you use numbers, I can't say we can give you that. I do know that each of those are pretty heavily used by the neighborhoods. When I do visit those parks, I regularly see people playing tennis. I was just at West Haven earlier or late last week checking out the projects, and that both the tennis courts were being used. I would not have numbers to say what, how much use they are for you. Roe Park. Well, let me jump to Park A and B because maybe we can talk about your Roe Park idea then. Parkside A and B, those have been in our CIP for the last number of years. Again, knowing that we have parkland there, we have development that has occurred there, and again, they've been in our project list. It's just that it's now getting closer to when we need to consider putting money into those. There is an option, and I shared this with the city manager and the finance director. We do have a fund where we are receiving fees in lieu of land dedication for the last few years. So that may be a potential funding source for some of those improvements, which may free up potentially some additional dollars for us to do some other projects. So I have shared that with the city manager, and they are going to look at that as an option as well. Roe Park, the play equipment there again is one of our older ones. We have already installed a number of years ago. We put the perimeter, the concrete sidewalk around there. So that's why that project the number is down a little bit comparing to like 44th. That number at 44th includes more concrete work and accessible routes, where that's already done at Roe. So the equipment there will need to get replaced soon. I don't know what other project you were looking to talk about expanding on. So I don't know if you want to throw that out now or how you want to handle that.
Just real quick, I was in conversation, and Lester, you may be familiar with this or not, but I was in conversation with a board member from the YMCA as we were speaking about Central City Park space and the deficiencies. And one of the recommendations out of a number of them, this individual said would be worth a conversation with the YMCA board was expanding Roe Park and exploring a potential partnership with the YMCA, given that a number of folks don't even realize that it's a city park. They think of it as kind of a part of the daycare center for the Y. Obviously there was a pretty popular, ice rink out there last year, which was super cool. But it just may be something that potentially could be a discussion with the YMCA board and another, partnership type thing to think a little bigger beyond just a play set there.
So I think that I don't see any more hands up here. Oh, Lester, there you go.
I was just tuning in. So from what you talked with one of our board members, not sure that hasn't come down our way yet though. Expansion, I'm not sure what the expansion would be. I think we have a great partnership already with doing the skating rink. But there are things that we can do to make the park nicer and better, whether it be new benches or picnic tables, more gathering spaces, something like that. But yeah, we're always interested in, that's our years ago, that was our front yard. Now it's kind of our side, it's kind of our side yard. So as well as the park goes, the nicer the park is, the nicer it is around in our neighborhood. So I would have to say that it is identified as a neighborhood park. There are a lot of neighborhood kids that utilize the play structure and kind of the field and everything else. So it is pretty well known in their neighborhood as a neighborhood park. But they always come to the YMCA if there's trouble out there. So like community members will come in and say, there's kids out in the park fighting, and you'd be like, well, okay, we'd go out and talk to them where it was more, I don't know, like a police thing or arguing or whatever. I don't know, silliness. But Yeah, so I think it's a really good neighborhood park, but I think there's opportunities there. The other thing I had a question on was kind of the park department building and renovation, Ray. And I wasn't sure if I heard right. You guys are kind of working through planning stages right now, and in 2022 would kind of be the start of construction, and 2023 would be kind of finish of construction with the new parks building.
Yes, correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that timeline, that timeline
Yep.
right.
Yeah, it became a little more feasible for the council to fund it over 3 years. And knowing that design was going to take us most of this year, as well as the construction season may take us nearly the whole year. And then final punch list and final payments, the third year, we felt it was something we could do. So yes, that's where we're at.
With
So
the-
oh, go ahead, Lister.
With the increase in all the prices of construction right now, are you still fairly confident in sticking close to budget?
That's our consultant is telling us yes. I have that same concern for that project as well as the Four Seasons building. And I'll touch a little bit on the Four Seasons building a little bit later, but those are things that, we're going to have to address if we bid them out and see where the numbers come in. But right now, our consultant, they're doing projects now, and he's still comfortable telling us that he feels he can get it within our budget. So,
okay.
So back to your original question, Mayor, I think because this is the 23 list, I'd still suggest we keep the Roe Park play equipment in as we have it. And over the next year, Lester and I can have some conversations about maybe some things that the Y might have an interest in and as well. So I think there's some opportunities that we might have some.
And I guess it would be kind of weird for me to make a motion to make a recommendation to council on the road thing. So maybe somebody else wants to do that.
Yeah, let's hold that till the end. We'll make that as a separate. So maybe we'll approve it however you guys want to approve the years, and then we'll come back to that if that's okay. Any other questions or thoughts on these? Because as we get into the next couple of years, I'm going to move a little quicker because there's a lot of projects, but again, they haven't jumped up to our 2-year prioritization list. So this is 2024. Lakeshore Park is still on there, and then you'll see the project for the parking lot and fields reconstruction at that year. Menomonee Park, this would be basically second phase of the road reconstruction. And then you start to see more playground equipment. All of these were probably in the 2001, 2003 installation. There's a couple, I think, that end like 2005 and 6. So Rainbow, Abe-Rochland, Stevens Park. We're asking again for some zoo improvements here as things. We need to start looking at some different smaller exhibits for some of our animals and other improvements. You'll see the resurfacing of, this includes the tennis and basketball courts at Stevens Park. So this is a smaller number because it's just the resurfacing. So 44th tennis court, recoding, and then our annual request for some trail improvement dollars. Again, without going too in depth, if there's any, go ahead, any questions?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, this is just a quick one. So far, I reviewed this previously, but I'm not necessarily seeing any future land acquisition as identified in the corp in our CIP here. So it doesn't, other than that land that was dedicated. And Ray, you and I have been having some conversations about the historic need in the central city, but I guess my question is, at what point does that land acquisition make it even into the CIP for those central city areas that were identified, and even out on the west side potentially? I think Ms. Martin referenced in a prior meeting. At what point does that ever make it into the CIP?
I would say if the board would want to support or put it into one of the years, knowing that we have this long, extensive list of current maintenance needs, as well as 2 park spaces that have already been dedicated, which we have not been able to develop at this point yet. That becomes the difficult discussion. When we talk about the city growing to the west, typically when we grow to the west or grow on the edges, it's going to be the subdivision item that we'll be able to address some of the parkland needs and parkland dedication, hopefully, because we have not, since I've been here again for the 11 years, those 2 parklands, park site A and B, were the only 2 sites that the city has acquired. So to answer your question, I guess it's wherever the board or anybody's comfortable trying to put something in these lists, knowing that other things aren't being maintained or would need to get bumped potentially. So.
Scott, go ahead.
Okay, I wouldn't be in favor of bumping any existing park projects in the interest of improving brand new parks. And also just a general comment on the on the Parks Department building renovation. I'm glad to hear that the council and city manager are very supportive of that. I'm hoping, because of the cost, that doesn't get kicked down the road. The Parks Department building is so grossly inadequate right now. And despite all of that, Ray, you and your staff just do a phenomenal job in your daily operations. And I think a brand new building will enhance some of the efficiencies and the daily operational needs of your department. I think we've seen that in the street department with their facilities. So we have the mayor's ear, and I'm hoping the council continues to support that in your 22 and 23 budgets.
Deb.
I would urge us to put something in these farther out budgets, probably this one, about a park acquisition, just to show our citizens and the council and so on what the cost might be. Again, like you said, you're planning more recent, and I'm not suggesting that any of these things need to go. I think we show a bigger number because of the the number of citizens in our city, and anyway, we need to start showing how much this might be. So even if it gets caught, at least it starts being there, as opposed to not showing it all. Because maybe 5 million just isn't really a good number for all of these things to be maintained. And unless we start showing a higher number, we won't ever grow to it. But again, I'm not suggesting replacing anything. This is all very well done.
I kind of agree with that. I don't agree with taking anything out of this, but putting something on the docket for like 2025, 2026, just to get it there to show that we do need more money.
And I don't disagree with that. It gets it on the radar, that it makes the council and the city manager know that it has to happen. And if there's favorable economic times and we can move things up in the pecking order, it's definitely something we can look at. So I guess I'm looking for, I don't want to take time, but consensus, do we want to try to slot that into 25 or sooner, or what? I'm looking for ideas.
I'd like to just make a follow-up if I may. Just so the Parks Advisory Board is aware, I've been sitting in on conversations, and as recent as yesterday, 4 neighborhood associations were represented from the central city in their desire to address this long historic need of deficient spaces, with over 10% of the population living in less than a square mile downtown. And, given the density and, what occurred last year, that lack of, we'll call it breathing space, was entirely intensified. And several of those neighborhood associations have attempted to even do small pocket-like park acquisitions on their own. And so just just to make you aware that this is not just the mayor's grand idea. There are 4 neighborhood associations that all are contiguous that are strongly interested in getting this on beyond just being a dot on the map from 10 years ago.
So I just scrolled down real quickly to 2025 and just looking at 24 having projects of about 5.3 and 25 is about 2 million. To put it on the radar, do we put something in 25 at least at this point?
I make a motion that
Sure.
we do put something in our 2025 budget of, I'm open to a suggestion of a dollar amount. Ray, you know certainly
Yep,
better than me.
I can come up with some dollar amount we can put in there. I'll make that change. So 25, did you say, Deb? And is that agreeable to others?
Yep.
Sounds good, Ray.
Okay.
I agree.
And to the mayor's point, our corp does identify as that area of the city as needing a neighborhood park. So it's definitely in our corp. It's just a matter of how and when that we can get it and get it done. And again, making sure we maintain the other things that we have in our list as well. So, all right, I'm going to keep going, and I want to keep going because I think I only scheduled a meeting for 2 hours, and I don't want to have us cut out because I didn't schedule it long enough. So I don't want to cut the dialogue either. All right, so this is 25. Going through again, we're keeping Lakeshore Park in there at this point. Red Arrow play equipment, Abbey Park play equipment, Quarry Park restrooms. This is one. The focus after we did the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan update right after I started, one of the biggest complaints and concerns of the citizens were the restrooms in the parks. And the council and the city manager have been great at supporting the renovations or new facilities. And I believe that this will be our final restroom in our system that needs to have an upgrade done to it. So Quarry Park is really used a lot by the soccer and football groups because it's an active or a former landfill with some active methane gas piping and so forth. It's very limited what could happen there, but there is a need for restrooms out there because of the number of youth that use it. So we are recommending still to have some renovation of that done to make it usable. Looking at some Stevens Park lighting replacement. Menomonee Park, we're just putting a placeholder in right now because Menomonee Park lighting, just like the road, it's going to be a bigger expense than just $50,000. But if we can start picking off some of the lights in sections of the park, to get some of the newer efficient lighting in there. Our annual park trails improvement. And then we're getting into the Rainbow Park Memorial improvements. This would be parking lot area for boat launch. That would be the design of that project. Red Arrow Park lighting. This one is it's for lights in the park area itself, not at the ball diamond. There's some issues, obviously. Hopefully, most of you know that Red Arrow used to be a landfill, and the land continues to basically sink because of some of the issues with the former landfill there. So we're not recommending putting a lot of money in. Riverside Cemetery roads, and then West Haven Circle, the splash pad there is something that is in our corp that I know the neighbors would still like to see. That still hasn't been high on our list because we have a lot of things maintenance wise that we feel we need to do before we can add something new. So it's still there. It just hasn't moved up real high. So go ahead,
Ray,
Tony.
just to reiterate, then you would put the neighborhood park then on 2025 as part of that thing then.
I'll put it in here as a parkland acquisition, and I can work on some verbiage, central city area or something, whatever we can come up with. But I'll get it in here in 2025 as well.
And I don't want to revisit the whole thing. I'd like it noted that a true neighborhood park is what is needed. I don't necessarily think that multiple pocket parks or anything that like that is necessarily a solution for maintenance or for that. And so I would prefer, in my opinion, like a true neighborhood park. So as you're coming up with a number, have that reflect that. So.
Yep, and it'll just be an acquisition cost at this point. And then we'll need to obviously work with wherever it ends up being with the neighbors to see what they prefer to have there. So.
Sure, thank you.
And just clarification question, Ray, on the lighting. Are we doing any kind of solar lighting in the parks, or is that not a thing yet?
Our electrician is looking at some options for that. There's a couple sites that we are willing to give it a try. I don't recall which sites he's looking at, but yes, it is something he is looking into. All right, I'm going to keep rolling because again, we are out in future time here quite a ways, but you can see on 2026, I kept Lakeshore in there, hoping that, we're getting closer to having some major improvements done out there. Getting into West Algoma for playground replacement, putting a placeholder in for more zoo improvements. Rainbow Memorial Park, this would be the major project to redo the boat launch parking lot and boat launch areas to allow for better parking and launch access. Along with the restrooms, we've been pretty fortunate to be able to redo a number of ball fields throughout the city. And I think 44th Parallel will probably be one of our final ones that we have to be redone throughout our system. So we pushed that one out a little bit, but knowing it needs to be addressed. We're putting a placeholder in right now for some restoration at the skate park. That is a heavily used facility. If you haven't gone by there during a day, whether it's school in session or not, it's heavily used. And I believe that was constructed, in 2008. And we've done just some small maintenance items there, but I think we need to have a better handle on what we need to do or what we can address on that site. So we're putting a placeholder in. Park trails, Stegbauer Park restroom shelter. This is something that has been a number of years in our CIP list. And I think it's time we really start considering that. We do know that there's the bar right across the street, the Lions Den. I have heard a number of complaints from them where people come to use the ball field and they're going into their establishment and using the restrooms, and it's becoming an issue. We do have some of the user groups pay for a portable toilet there, but we've had issues with vandalism. One year, I think we had the restroom, the portable toilet lit on fire once or twice. They tip it over, and there's just multiple reasons why I think we need to look at having at least a small restroom shelter there. Menomonee Park tennis court lighting. This is something I pushed out because we really we didn't do the new lights when the courts were restructured. I'm not hearing a lot of concerns about the current one, so not high on my list. And then the Quarry Park dog park has been something in our CIP for a number of years. I leave it in there. I have not heard a lot of requests from city residents. This is an area where I think the county parks is more adequate for some of the dog parks. But so that's 2026 at this point.
Okay, any other questions for Ray? Deb, go ahead.
But Ray, could this 2026 also have land acquisition, some smaller amount, or just a line item about it as well? Would that be appropriate or not?
I guess I'd like to try to identify if we're going to say we're going to acquire land where we'd be thinking, I guess.
Okay.
I
mean,
think
the same. It's just a matter of a placeholder. We got it in 25, but just that we're looking at it as an ongoing kind of situation.
I think having it in 2025 is good right now. It really keeps it out on the radar, and that gives us time, Deb, if depending on the economy and how things change next year, the following year when we're reviewing this and we see that, yeah, we're having growth and we're not getting the parkland, we need to continue to grow there. I think there's just so much that's going to get pushed out to 26 because we aren't funding it the 3 prior years. But I think getting it in there on the radar is a good idea, at least in 1 year. And I know the mayor, she will be speaking for it too. So
thank you.
Sure. Right. So any major changes or anything you want to see me change other than adding that acquisition item? I know we had some discussion earlier. I guess I would recommend we leave the bathhouse as is now, and I'll continue to work towards that and keep you in the loop on where we think that's headed. But that might be one that may change as we get into our meetings with the council.
Cool. Sounds good, Ray. Thank you very much.
Is this the point, Ray, where committee members could make a recommendation on the road?
Yes, I guess what I would recommend, let's make the recommendation to approve this listing or this priority list. And then you can make a second one recommending the road improvements be considered as part of the streets projects or street budget, I guess, if that's what you're looking at.
Do you think though pushing it out to the streets is going to prolong, like push improvements out even farther because it won't be high on their priority list?
That's where this board, and I think myself and the mayor can speak towards this board saying it's got to become more of a priority, and maybe funding it through the streets, it will become more of a priority because of the needs that we have throughout the park system.
Okay.
But I think it's a good idea and a good option for the board to consider. It's not saying we're taking it out of our documents, Becky, but if there's a way we can get it done quicker would be good.
Okay, so it sounds like first step here is to approve or recommend this for approval. Ray, that's what you said what the first thing would be?
I would just say a recommendation for the council to consider this as your prioritized list.
Okay, very well said. Do we have a recommendation?
Recommendation.
And a second?
This is Deb, I'll second.
I'm going to give that to Scott for the second. I saw him on there first. So,
All right, I'll do roll call on that then. This is for the recommendation to approve the capital improvement program prioritization, I guess. Bartelt,
Aye.
Davis, Durst,
aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Met,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
and Palmieri.
Aye.
All right, motion passed 9-0. Amy did tell me that she was an aye, even though we can't hear her.
Very good. Thank you, Stacy. And next thing then would be a recommendation to propose to council the removal of the Menomonee Park streets and from the parks budget into the city streets fund, essentially. And we think mayor may not want to be a part of this. So is there other voices that want to recommend this?
I'll make a motion to recommend that.
So that would be Scott. Is there a second? I see Becky's hand. Very good. Thank
Okay.
you, Becky.
All right, I'll do roll call on that as well. Bartelt,
Aye.
Davis, Durst,
Aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Met,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
and Palmieri.
Aye.
All right. And again, Amy is an aye on that as well. Thank you. Motion passed 9-0.
Okay. Very good. It looks like number 5 on our list to keep on moving for new business is potential park projects for the American Rescue Plan Act. Ray.
Yes, I'm going to keep the CIP list up because I'll let you know which ones when I submit on my behalf, which ones I've asked the council and the city manager to consider. If you're not familiar with the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA for short, it's the federal funding coming down to municipalities to help deal with some of the issues related to COVID and helping with some infrastructure improvements. So the city of Oshkosh is scheduled to receive approximately $20 million-ish as part of that program. So the city manager and the council have discussed some criteria or some ideas for criteria to consider as they begin to get input from not only departments, but the citizens. They've asked us to ask each board and commission if there's any specific projects that they would like to see considered. So that's what we're doing this evening. A number of them are in the CIP. I felt in the council, and I think the city manager feel if they're in a plan or a deal with our city strategic plan, those may score a little higher as projects because they're already planned in documents and so forth. So a couple of these projects that I have or will be submitting, but there may be others that the board may want to consider too. So I'm just going to go through real quickly. There's not a whole lot of them, but on this list, I'm just going to go through. I did say Lakeshore Park development might be a good option. The bathhouse renovation, possible good option. From this list, I did say it may not meet the criteria, but it's a large expense. So I'm looking at Menomonee Park, the parking lot, and Reeds Fields project. I did suggest possibly the Menomonee Park Road reconstruction be considered. So that might be a way for the council to potentially speed up the funding for that. I don't know if there are many others. And I tried to do ones that have been on our list for years to try to get those projects completed. I may have suggested maybe the Rainbow Memorial Park, the large project out there, but kind of gives you an idea. You as a citizen can always recommend or suggest projects. If you go to the city website, there are forms that citizens can fill out. I know the city manager has a number of meetings over the next couple of weeks planned to have the public provide input. So that information's on the city website as well. I don't know if there's anything in specific anybody from the board would like to throw out for discussion potentially.
Ray, could I just add a little bit more detail to that? For those of you who may not be aware, there are specific requirements that the feds and the treasury came out with as to what categories we can use them. One of them being direct assistance to households, economic development, all the way down to I think the fourth category was water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. But public health was a central category as well. So I guess I just want folks to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think the other one too, Lori, was loss of revenue due to COVID. So, for example, our pool is in a separate fund where we didn't operate, so we lost a lot of revenue at the pool. We didn't have the expenses, but we didn't get that revenue. And in the general fund for the city, there's a number of areas that we lost revenue, specifically special events, room tax are some of those items that the council will be looking at. So, but yeah, there's a number of different categories too. So I guess I'm looking for any input if you have it now, or if you feel free as a citizen again to fill out the forms on the city website.
Sorry, where can we get the list of what Lori just gave us?
I believe that, Ray, does that link on the city's newsletter have, I mean, council, we got a big packet and memo and lots of detail, but for the general public, is it on that linked document or form on the city newsletter? Does it spell out the categories?
I think it does. I can't say I went to the link. If you like, I can send out that those categories to this board, though. I can put something together and send you an email.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
And so can the folks on this board send that to you after the fact, or are you expecting them to answer now, Ray?
No, I'm wondering if there's anything particular as a park board member you'd like us to put out from the board, but you also as a citizen have that opportunity as well, whether it's parks related or anything else related.
This is Deb. I would just say, Ray, you've chosen some good projects. I trust your judgment on this one.
Okay.
I concur.
All right. I think we can
All
keep
right.
going.
Ray, Ray, can I jump in? At 7 o'clock, someone joined in. Was that Mr. Schellinger?
It is. I was hoping we can get
Okay.
towards the end. And if we have a couple minutes, Colby, you might be able to do your brief introduction yet too. All right.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt then. So we can go to the
Nope.
staff report. Sorry.
Nope, I appreciate it. Tony, I'll jump ahead to my report if that's okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, so an update on Lakeshore Park, Four Seasons building. Basically what we presented to you at the April meeting hasn't changed much. It has gone to the Plan Commission for a workshop as well as approval at their most recent meeting. So the Plan Commission has approved the design basically that we've been working on with this board. Smith Group is working on currently going through our planning division and engineering for approvals on the final documents, construction documents, and I'll be working with them. We anticipate possibly putting it out for bids in July and seeing what the bids come in at. Back to, I think, Lester's question. Once we bid it out and get those results, we'll hopefully have favorable bids. And if not, we may have to go back to the city manager and to the finance director, try to come up with options for potential funding if we need to. And then that would go to the council. If they come in way high that we don't feel comfortable doing the project at this point, that's something we'll take to council as well for some discussion. So I think at this point, we're going to continue moving forward and bidding it out and see where we come in. So again, the Plan Commission just recently approved it, and they had high remarks for the design, the things that the board had discussed for the last number of months. I think everybody was happy with the unique qualities of the building, I guess. So update on our parks.
Ray, can I just ask if you could unshare the screen so we can see everybody again?
I'm sorry. I just stopped my video. All right, thank you. Next project, our Parks Administration Operations Facility. We are moving forward with the design for that as well. We actually are meeting with our consultant next week. And what I expect I'll do is I'll bring, probably to the next Parks Board meeting, I'll bring you just some conceptual views of the facility that we're looking at. It's not really something that this board is more into the parks and the operation of the parks and the CIP. But I definitely want to make sure that you are aware of what conceptually we're looking at on the site. What we're working with the same consulting firm that designed the streets facility a number of years ago. They actually worked with us on a preliminary design back in 2012, and they've been doing a great job for us. And I think it's a building, as we talked about, or somebody mentioned earlier, just efficiency. I know that the streets division has improved their efficiency getting out of the building much earlier, to getting the staff out on the roads, getting them in and out of the building a lot quicker, other than stacking equipment and taking some time to get those pieces of equipment out. So I'll bring some drawings forward on that. And then the last item is a project that the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee has been discussing. Chief Oshkosh, obviously in Menomonee Park. There, for the last couple of years, former Mayor Cummings had started a project working on updating and adding some additional information, signage, plaques out at the site. Because of the computer virus and coronavirus, it was a project that kind of got slowed down into the wayside. And the DEI committee took that up recently, has had some discussions with the tribe, as well as some of the members from the university on some additional signage again to go around that statue. The mayor can talk a little bit more about it if she'd like, but it's something that we've been asked, each board and commission that might have an involvement in the project is asked if they'd like to have a joint meeting or just be involved in seeing the signage or the information when it's coming forward from DEI. They're going to take the role or the lead on this, but we've been asked to find out from the various boards and commissions who'd like to see it. For me as the parks director and being out in the park, I think it'd be wise for us to at least take a look at what the recommended signage is going to look like. And I'm seeing a lot of head nodding. So is that okay with everybody here? Do you feel you'd like to have a joint meeting with them, or would you rather have them provide the information to us as a recommendation to consider?
My personal opinion would be, and joint meeting might be a little overkill for that. We could maybe just have them come and present or show us what they have or give us the materials to consider.
Nods of heads or
I
consensus?
agree, recommendation to consider.
Okay. Mayor, you,
Ray, I'm thinking from the logistical, like installation perspective in this board. I think you and or Mr. Fitzpatrick, who's kind of taking the lead of herding all these cats together, that there's some cataloging of the site that would have some governing requirements as to where those additional pieces would get placed. And then of course there's the, kind of maintenance around that. So, perhaps.
that is something, Lori, we've had a number of discussions when this project originally started, and making sure that we're aware of, those catalog sites. And I guess I'll make sure and share that with Mr. Fitzpatrick, because what we had been told is the signs that would be added would be outside of our existing perimeter walk around there, so that they're accessible, and we could still put them on the northeast, west side, however the
Cardinal directions.
Correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what our preference was, is outside of the existing walkways, so that people can go around and have wheelchair access as well to those sites. But I could share that with Mr. Fitzpatrick as well.
Yeah, I would just add that he had put a memo together that had a map of those catalog sites, but unfortunately they were very grainy and very difficult to read. So you guys might have better quality images with relation to that. So thank you.
I'll check. I know, I think Alexa actually from planning had that information, because she originally was working on the project with the former mayor. So, okay, well, good. That helps. I'll turn it over to Bill.
Okay, I just wanted to update everybody on the Emerald Ash Forest situation. We had a lot of trees show the effects over the past winter. We have currently over 900 Emerald Ash Borer affected trees that will be needing to be removed. So we've got a long list of work. Obviously, that's our priority, to try to accomplish this as soon as we can. But with a small crew, we're going to be struggling on some of the other things we do too. So I just, for the public's benefit, I just want to thank everybody for understanding and being aware of, the concern, and also that, we're dealing with some difficult logistics and all this. So we continue to have over 600 ash under treatment. We have, during our annual planting programs, been replacing those as rapidly as we can, basically on a request basis at this point. But we do have intention of replacing trees as we go into the future too. So along those lines, this spring we're nearing the completion of our spring planting. We've installed over 120 terrace trees so far, and many of those were replacing trees that we took out last year, and mostly ash. And then I think we've also had quite an uptick in interest in our memorial tree program too, which has helped tremendously. So I just did a quick tally, and I've already installed 21 memorial trees this spring, and we still have orders coming in quite frequently. So I think people are understanding that there's needs to kind of replenish the urban forest. So we're very happy about that effort as well. We've got a bunch of landscaping projects going too. We just finished up the installation of all the flower beds about a week ago. So we're kind of ahead of schedule this year. The weather has been cooperative. Obviously we could use some rain here to help out all of our plantings, but I guess we're discussing tree planting too, and we put out a lot of trees last fall. So I'd encourage residents, if they can help water terrace trees, that really takes a big load off of us as well too, because we really don't have sufficient staffing to keep everything watered, especially during these hot periods, because our guys are really running around trying to keep things alive right now. So just keep that in mind too. If you know folks and groups who want things to do to help us out, watering terrace trees is a big deal. So That's pretty much all I have right now. If anybody's got any questions, be happy to answer those.
Bill, this is just kind of a small thing, but on those terrace trees, especially I notice, at least around kind of the thicker, more dense neighborhoods, a lot of those suckers come up from the bottom. Is there like an annual education flyer that could be stuck in the water bill or something about, how a resident can address that? Or do you prefer to do those things yourself?
Really by ordinance, it's up to us to deal with that. We, removing suckers isn't really problematic, but the issue is people tend to take it one step more and start pruning their own terrace trees, which is not always the best thing for residents with limited knowledge about tree care to be doing. I guess I'm okay with removing root suckers, but I'd leave it at that. Everything else should really be relayed to me, and we'll send somebody out if there's something that needs to be done. And plus, we have a 5-year pruning cycle that we stick to. That our staff goes through, our complete inventory, every 5 years. Granted, we've been focusing on ash removals during our last couple cycles, so that takes more time on our part, but we don't always have a lot of time for those little details. But we try to do our best to keep things up as best we can on a routine basis.
All right, Tony, do you mind if we give Kobe Schellinger, who's our new alternate board member, a chance to say hello and provide a little background?
I think that's a great idea.
Kobe, welcome.
Thanks. Kobe Schellinger. I'm nice to see some of you that I've known before, and looking forward to getting to know a few new people. So I grew up in Oshkosh. Moved back here with my wife about 11 years ago or so, and we've got a little 6-year-old girl, and we like to spend a lot of time at the park. So I'm really excited to be a part of this committee. I've been on a few other committees in the past, so excited to just be a part of things and contribute what I can. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Looking forward to getting a chance to sit down with all of you in person sometime and get to learn more about what the journey you've all been on and where we're going.
Awesome. Thank you, Kobe. Welcome to the committee, or the board, I should say.
Welcome.
We should know. I know that we're running out of time here, Ray. Any other business from the board?
So did I understand at the beginning we're not meeting in July unless something comes up? So it would be August. Is that when we're going back in person? Remind me, please.
I would, I'm still going to leave us penciled in for July 12th. I'm leaning towards the 2 items we tabled tonight, I don't think are pressing issues. There's something that we can continue to work through. So I would say it's about 50-50 right now, and we'll let you know well in advance if we're going to meet in July. And in August, I still thought we were meeting virtually, and then in August, you were going to decide how you're going to proceed from there, is my understanding.
That is correct. That
Okay.
is what the board had decided last month.
Okay, so right now, potentially not July, so it would be August, but we'll definitely let you know well in advance.
Excellent. Well, besides that, any other business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Lester seconds.
Thanks, Lester. I'll do a quick roll call on adjournment then. Bartelt,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Durst,
Aye.
Groyle,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
And then Davis is also an aye. Motion approved 9-0. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.